another thing I appreciate is the methodical way, good old Methodism, that you walk us through 5 crucial stages for making a comeback, and you pair each of those stages with a spiritual practice, an ancient practice. And I'm wondering if you might tell a little bit about those stages and practices.
Sure. So it was something that kind of came to me originally, as I talked about in that retreat, that this is a process. And any comeback, sadly, starts with a fall. Something bad has to happen, something that you didn't anticipate, something that oftentimes would hit you out of the blue, as we were just talking about. And the question then really in each case is, how are you going to face that choice that's before you? Will you allow that fall to define and defeat you? Or will you allow yourself to choose to dig deeper, to ignite hope, and to mount a comeback? And there are many people that just kind of stop right there. You know, that fall essentially ends up defining and defeating them in life. And they never get on the comeback journey. And that to me is tragic. I know what it's like in my own personal life to have a fall, a deep fall, a painful one. And I know how easy it is to wallow in the midst of that pain and just stay there. But I don't believe that's what God has in mind for anyone in any person's life. That there is more, much more. And in fact, ironically, when we have a fall, depending on how we respond to it, it could lead us to far greater things than we could have ever imagined previously. The fall actually ended up being a necessary part of our overall journey in life. So that fall is the first thing, and the transforming practice that goes along with that fall, kind of the centuries old practice that's been used in every different culture for many, many years, is to listen to your emotions. This is something that is not particularly common in our culture. We like to kind of barrel on, move past the things that we're feeling, to take action. We're a very action-oriented kind of culture. And unfortunately, we're oftentimes woefully unaware of what's really going on underneath. Yet, when we try to numb out our emotions or escape the pain, it usually ends up leading us down a dark and destructive path. So if we can listen to our emotions are important because they give us information about our lives that we wouldn't know otherwise. You can't be controlled by them. This is a really important point, but you do need to listen to them. So that's the first step, essentially, on the journey. You have to have a fall and begin listening. Second is you actually come to yourself. You know, that you have that aha moment when essentially you hit your own bottom and there's this deep internal decision that, you know what, I'm not going to stay here anymore. I'm not simply going to wallow in this mire, this mess. I am going to do something to move forward. That's critical. Without that, you're just going to stay stuck where you were. You're going to stay stuck in your hurt. And that's not a place that's going to bring about the kind of maturity and growth that God has in store for any one of us. So the transforming practice in that, ironically, this is, again, something that's counterintuitive, but also an ancient practice, is to engage in solitude and silence and stillness before the Lord. To actually go to a place where everything gets turned off. And you're not connected to your cell phone or TV or to the internet, to any kind of computer. You are just alone with God and alone with your thoughts. And there's an amazing power in that kind of solitude. I think it was Henry Nouwen who once said that solitude is the furnace of transformation. It's just a powerful place for God to do some things in us that we couldn't do on our own. I think it's not an accident that this whole idea for this book came in the midst of 5 days of solitude and stillness for me. So the third step in this overall comeback journey is to find a guide. The truth of the matter is that we need help. And oftentimes we think that we can do stuff all by ourselves. And, again, that's a big part of our culture. We kind of pull ourselves up by our bootstraps, and it's very individualistic in our approach. But the truth of the matter is there are things that we can't see about ourselves that even other people in our lives can see. I oftentimes talk about it as kind of our blind spots right back here. It's right behind one of our ears. And actually, you can see my blind spot, Connie, but I can't see it. Just as I can see your blind spot, but you can't see it. And that's why we need each other to help us see more fully what is going on in our lives. And that's the beauty of seeking wise counsel, trusted people that can help us overcome those things that we can't even see about ourselves. That leads us to the fourth step, which is to make a plan and take action. By the way, the transforming practice of finding a guide is simply to seek wise counsel. So when you get to that fourth step, make a plan, take action, the transforming practice there is simply to plan and act. And I found that there's kind of two different people in this world. There are people that like to plan, and there are people that like to act. The problem is that when you act without a plan, or when you plan without action, neither one of those end up going very well. You need them both to be able to move the needle of your transformation journey. So the last of these 5 steps in this comeback journey is trusting the process. This is the one that may be the hardest. And the transforming practice in this is embracing patient trust. And again, this is not something that comes naturally within our culture. We want to take action, take bold action, and see it have some kind of impact immediately. And most of the time, when we're in some form of fall, that experience of trusting the process when we get to this point in the journey means that we're going to be wandering through a wilderness. Both inwardly and outwardly, there's going to be this sense of struggle and even doubt as to whether we can come back. And to be honest with you, a lot of people get partway there and give up. So my hope is that this book would help anyone who gets to that point to not be someone that turns back. Doubt is the leading edge of faith. And faith is really the unseen secret of turnarounds. So we have to really just own this fact. Without struggle, there is no comeback. That struggle really winnows out those false hopes and makes room for deep faith to carry us through the messy middle to the new life that is in store for us. So that's the process.
Wonderful. That's a great explanation. And again, the methodical nature of the book is, I think, so helpful. And the inspirational aspects of it, I think, do really pull the reader along or push the reader along in that process. Thank you so much.
Sure. My pleasure. Actually, I got to tell you, it was a lot of fun it was a lot of work, but it was a lot of fun to write this, because I felt like I was on my own little discovery journey on every single chapter, every single page. There were many things that I learned through the process of writing this that I didn't know with regard to comebacks when I started. So it was a discovery journey for me. And so I want to be able to take people along on that journey, because I think it's such a great journey. The journey itself is awesome. The journey itself is transformative. It's not simply about getting to whatever end you think you want to eventually reach.
Yeah, that's a great point.